Hey everybody, it's probably the next host tonight.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I call the meeting to order, and would you please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance? Want to welcome everyone here tonight. And at this point, we'll turn things over to the superintendent for points of pride.
I'm very excited to introduce Miss Sutton, grade 3 teacher from Pierce School, and 2 of her students are going to come up to the front to introduce themselves. I know. I told the students how much the board loves hearing from students, that they hear a lot from adults. So it's a real treat to have them come and share the important work that they're doing in the classroom. So Jen, I'll let you have everybody introduce themselves and then just tell me when
to
to click.
click and go. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back in the boardroom. It's been a little bit, so nice to see everybody. I've brought a few students with me. I'll let them introduce themselves, but we're going to talk to and give you an update on our turtle project that we've been doing in 3rd grade. This is my 4th year, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves and say hello.
Hi, I am Leland, and I am very glad to see you all and to be here.
Hi, I am Brooklyn, and I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. So they're really the ones that you want to ask the questions because they know all of the good stuff. Yeah, so this is our 4th year head starting the turtle program. I think I came my first year that we had started them, but we have done a lot of work since then. And I'll tell you a little bit about it tonight, but also I'll let them just share a couple activities that we've worked on most recently in the classroom and some facts and things that they've learned. But we'll try and keep it short because we also know you have a lot to do. So, yeah, so we started this program basically, we partnered with the Harris Center and Susie Spickle, who's been a huge part of all of the learning that has taken place and making connections with community members. So I definitely want to give a shout out to the Harris Center because they have been just tremendous with this project. It started out where we just piloted this program, and now it's in multiple classrooms in the district. It goes into Jaffrey Ringe. I know the high school has turtles. Tom Morris over in Antrim, 4th grade in Hancock. So it keeps going. So this has really started to grow in the district because it's been so fabulous for the kids. So if you take a look at some of the slides here of the students. So here we have the turtles. So this year we had started 5. We have Balto, Biggie Smalls, Felix, Iris, and Luna. This year, 2 of the turtles grew quite quickly. You'll be able to see in the data that the kids collect every week and analyze. But Balto and Felix grew pretty quick. Biggie Smalls, Iris, and Luna were a little bit smaller. And this year they actually developed a respiratory illness that we weren't expecting. But the kids can talk about it. But it was a really great experience for them because they saw how, we had to come in and help them. We took them to the vet. They got care. They went to my house for a little while. They'll be back in the classroom soon. But things don't always go smoothly. And in the natural world, or whenever you take on a big project to help animals, you have to be prepared to see it through and to care for them. So this was the first year that we had a little oops. And it's possible that they also got a respiratory illness from students, which can happen, and vice versa. So we're always careful when we handle them. But these are the 5 that we have this year, and we hope to release them at the end of May. Every year that's part of the work that we do is to teach the students that these are not our pets, that this is a project that we work on to get the population to thrive and to give them a purpose, to take care of our natural world. So doing the project has helped us with a lot of community partnerships. Again, I mentioned the Harris Center has really spearheaded this, but Susie and I will be doing a talk with the Bennington Conservation Commission coming up this summer. It'll be a turtle talk, so it's a great way to link one of our local communities with what we're doing and have families come and be involved. It allows students and families to understand their natural environment habitat right outside their door. These are animals that they see just driving. What do you do when you find one? So it's given them a lot of information as well as the students of what you can do to help your environment right outside your door. So we've had a lot of community partnerships. And if actually we go to the next slide, actually go one more, Dr. Forrest. Here we go. We had an opportunity to talk with biologists from the New Hampshire Turtle Rescue. Again, this was something the Harris Center hooked up with us, and it was perfect timing with when our turtles became sick. The students had a chance to talk with the biologists through Zoom and get some questions answered about what we should do, how we should handle them or not handle them. And then we could also share our data with them. We also were on with one other class in Dublin who's also head starting. So we had an opportunity to really spend some time with some biologists and connect the kids to, hey, I could do this for a career. Like I could actually work with animals. This is pretty amazing. So they had an opportunity to work with them. And I think the next slide, Dr. Forrest, might show, this was just today. I was a little starstruck. We had an opportunity to work with Matt Patterson, who just did illustrations on a book with Cy Montgomery. Both live in Hancock. And Matt came on today and helped the students draw painted turtles. So he did like a directed drawing. Leland, do you have yours today? You want to show?
This is my painted turtle, and as you can see, there's lots of details, and there's a fish over here, and some cattails, and then a mushroom over here, and there I added lots of color to make it look like that.
And it was challenging. There we go. We're green. It was challenging because it's real time, and we couldn't pause it. So there were definitely some challenges with that. But they did a really nice job with Matt. So I thank him for his time today to work with the students on these drawings. It was pretty exciting. Yep. Go ahead to the. Let's see if there's. So tracking data is a huge part of this program that we're doing. Each week, 1 to 2 weeks, we take the turtles out of the tank. Just as you see, there's a scale. We also measure their shell size to make sure they're growing adequately. That also helped us when they fell ill, because we could take a look to see, are they growing? What's their behavior like? And it was actually a student who pointed out that maybe the turtles weren't doing great. So they are very observant and very in touch with what their behaviors are. And sure enough, when I went over, I was like, oh yeah. So so each week we chart their growth. We also look at a district, actually larger than the district, any school that's head starting the turtles. We put our data into a chart so we can compare our turtles with their turtles. We can talk. We can say, hey, Mr. Morris, your turtles are 100 grams. Like, what are you feeding them? But then we can also look at the size, and I can say, hey, Susie, we've got a turtle that's only 22 grams and the others are 3 times the size. What's going on here? So it does allow us to make sure that we're caring for them properly, giving them the right food. It also tells us when we have to change over to live food. So they just recently started doing live mealworms, crickets, all that good stuff. But that will help them hunt and be ready for the wild so that they don't feel like pets. So it's a big part of what we're doing is the data collecting. That's huge. And there's our shell length. This is Brooklyn over here. She's taking some data. The kids are very involved with that. We teach them about tools that they need to use, but also protection. So you see that they have gloves on, washing their hands after to protect themselves, but to also protect the turtles. And they'll go ahead and weigh them, measure the shell, and the whole class has a data chart of their own. So after we weigh and measure them, they all have an opportunity to talk and take a look at how the data has changed, make any notes about turtle behavior, what we started feeding them that week. So it's really just a huge integrated project that goes on all year, but also into all subject areas, which has been pretty great. So at this time, if there's any questions or anything for the students too, I'm happy to turn the mic to whoever needs it.
So I was just going to ask the students, what is the most interesting thing that you've learned about turtles this year that you didn't know before you started?
Tina, do you want to answer that? Yeah? Okay. You can both say something.
I learned that turtles can hibernate under the mud under the ice during the winter, and while they do that, they can breathe through their butts.
That is very true. When they brumate, that's how they release the air. So that is a true fact. Susie loves to talk about those things in the classroom. It's very engaging.
I learned that the shell little shell pieces on their shells are called scutes, and that they can swim, and I love that they could swim really fast, and they kind of fight over each other for food, and they climb each other and all that stuff.
Yeah, we've learned that painted turtles are very social, which is one of the reasons why a painted turtle is great to do a Head Start program with. We've thought about doing other turtles as well, especially turtles that might be more, on the critical list, which could potentially happen. So that's why we're practicing with these. But they definitely have a lot of personality. I know Dr. Forrest came in today, and as soon as you turn the light on or you go to their tank, they follow you around and interact with you. And so you think they're just these reptiles sitting in a tank, but they're very engaging and interacting. Before I do a question from Mr. Harper, I will say too that there's a social emotional component to having any animal in the classroom, but the turtles have been kind of pivotal over the last 4 years. Students will come in and read to them. They'll try to earn time with the turtles just to sit next to the tank. The filter running for some is just very calming. So there's a big component there to help out other teachers. Hey, can I have a student come down and spend time with the turtles if they do X, Y, and Z? Yeah, sure, bring them in. So it's a school-wide, effort to name them and care for them, but they do provide that as well.
So, when you see a turtle in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
do you actually stop, pull over, pick them up, or is it a better idea to just direct traffic away and let the turtle go on its way?
So safety first. We learned about that. Obviously, if it's super busy, you don't want to get yourself in harm's way. But yes, you want to cross them.
Pick 'em up and
Yes, you can cross them. I sort of hold them on both sides of the shell, in between the legs, on each side, and hold them out from you so you don't get any surprises, and just make sure to wash your hands after. But absolutely, and you want to cross them in the direction that they're heading. Yeah.
thank
So, but yeah, that's one of the things that we do talk about. Hi, Jane.
How did you know that the turtles were sick?
We knew that the turtles were sick because they had they were like shedding white fuzzy skin.
Yeah, they had some white fuzzy skin, but also keep hitting that. Also, the eyes were a little bit enlarged. They seemed like they weren't opening as well as they should be. So that's sort of how we knew. But it was the students who said, "Hey, son, I don't think this is going right here." So yeah, we brought them to an exotic vet, and they're doing well.
I got a question for the two of you. See how observant you were. What did you notice about Matt Patterson when he talked to you? About the way he was dressed?
He always had a handkerchief looking headband or something, and I could tell that he was, a good artist. Well, obviously because the way he draws. And
How about his feet? Did you notice about his feet? What kind of shoes he was wearing?
now we couldn't really
Sandals
see.
all year long, no socks.
And he was in that tonight at the Harris Center at Susie's book opening. So he was. But yes, so they also noticed his turtle headband that he had on too. Hey, Dr. Forrest.
Well, I was just wondering about the other artwork that both of
Yeah.
the students brought.
Do you want to show what you have here? Go ahead.
So I made a quadrama about painted turtles, and I put facts in it. And on the front here, I made a clay turtle, and I put it on a little lily pad that I made.
So it included habitat information, what they eat, their life cycle, and just basic facts. And then Leland, do you want to just share quickly your poster that you have?
This is my little poster. The 3 facts that I learned about turtles are: turtles have webbed feet to help them swim faster, and turtles lay eggs in warm sand. Painted turtles might have a red or orange plastron. One question I still have about turtles is how they grow the tooth on their mouth when they are babies.
So we always try to have a question that we're going to work on for research. So, yeah, I would just say, kind of wrapping up, that this is definitely one of the more rewarding projects that I've been able to be a part of. It's definitely fits my philosophy of education, of getting kids outdoors, but also if you can't always get outside, how do you bring nature to you? So this is one of the ways that we can do that. This project was actually started 4 years ago. Dr. Forrest wrote a grant that helped us with funding this, and now the Harris Center helps a lot with the funding and has put money in their budget to help continue to support this and grow this in our schools. So it's been pretty great.
Thank you very much for coming
Thank you,
in.
guys.
So I just want to say, you are welcome to stay, but we also know it's a school night, so we totally understand if you need to get up and leave. We were expecting that, so thank you.
All right, at this point, before we go on with our agenda, we need to add one category to the agenda. The down for consent agenda under personnel, we need to add nominations and resignations. So I'd like a motion to add that to the agenda, please.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Approval of manifests?
I certify that the manifest listed below, totaling $1,461,993.60, have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucky Valley School District for goods and/or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move to approve the manifest.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, at this point in time, we have public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come up and speak to the board? No, I guess not. Okay. Reports. Ryan?
So last week at Conval, we had our annual blood drive that the National Honor Society put on. From what I heard is that they had a really good turnout and got a lot of donations. And then today we had a bunch of students that are seniors who play 3 sports at Conval went to Concord for the student athlete awards for playing the 3 sports. And then also next week we have the NEASC, which is the people that come and report on our school and do everything like that. They're coming next week and will be at Conval doing their assessment. So that's the big things.
Anyone have any questions for Ryan? All right, thank you. As usual, you're welcome to stay or head out. Communications Committee, Curtis?
Thanks. Communications met last Tuesday, very briefly. I was elected to chair that committee again, and we set about scheduling a few of our upcoming meetings for the month of April. That was basically the extent of it. So we'll meet next Tuesday, 6 o'clock. Get going from there.
And the Selectmen's Advisory Committee.
Yes, thanks. The Selectmen's Advisory Committee met last Thursday. Betsy Vallone was appointed vice chair and led the evening's meeting. We briefly discussed the voting results district-wide from March 11th. The forthcoming temple withdrawal study was discussed. The committee inquired about the start date for that study. We discussed the ways in which this study could be streamlined given the recent experience we've all had with studying withdrawal. The topic of withdrawal gave way to a broader conversation that circled many of the macro pressures our district faces. We considered the district's apportionment formula from multiple perspectives. We spoke of the inequities that are forced on our community due to the state of New Hampshire's over-reliance on property taxes as the main source of funding for public education. We also discussed consolidation as permitted within the Articles of Agreement, such as the plan that the Temple School Committee shared with us months ago. Last year, the Selectmen's Advisory Committee stopped gathering during the 6 months we studied withdrawal. It was suggested, albeit by myself, that we continue to meet regularly this year, even in the face of another withdrawal study. There's a lot to get together on and put our minds around. And I'm very much looking forward to our conversations gathering focus, especially as this new iteration of that committee gets going. It was also asked of me that, since I'm the rep to that committee from the board, that I give regular updates, more thorough updates of what we do in what we cover as a board in our meetings leading up to SAC every month. SAC is once a month at the end of the month. So it's something that I hope to bring back to communications, where we can really summarize and give a small presentation as a standing agenda item to the selectmen and give them a more robust picture into what's going on, both with the board and within our district. Thanks.
One of the other things that we did talk about was utilizing the committee. I'm sure everyone's been following all the things that are going on at our state legislature. And so we talked about utilizing the committee for the selectmen to reach out to their communities and try to get people to better understand some of the things that are happening in the legislature, so that we can get in contact with our legislative representatives and let them know exactly how we feel about some of the things that they're trying to do. So that's something that we're going to try to get that committee to be more involved with. All right, Janine, the Policy Committee.
Okay, so the policy committee met last Tuesday night, and we had a very efficient night. We got done in actually just a little over an hour. We have 4 policies to bring forward for first read tonight. And when we get down to that part of the agenda, I will go through those policies. And we have 1 policy to adopt tonight, and that was the one that we brought forward at the last meeting, EBCH, the hazardous chemicals. And we took care of the question that Carl had, and so we'll ask for adoption for that. We have a couple more. We had discussion on a couple more policies. One is the EEAG, the use of private vehicles to transport students and for other school purposes, is with legal. And we're working on policy JIH, student searches and their property. We didn't bring that forward for first read yet. That's got to come back again.
Okay, thank you. Jim, budget and property?
So we talked about really 3 different topics tonight. One, we have 2 new members of the team. That Carl and John are both members of the budget and property team now. And we talked really three subjects. One is routines and documents available to the members of the board and the committee. We talked about areas, then we really talked about areas we want to focus on, and I can boil that down to 2. One is, and we're going to vote next, we're going to look at the stuff, and then in our next meeting, we're going to prioritize which we want to work at. One is areas, deep dives in areas like transportation or special ed or healthcare or staffing, the administration or use of contracted personnel. Is a long list of items we could focus on. Another one was looking at, I want to call it structure, not configuration or anything else, because I don't want to, this is kind of, we want to make this a fresh look. There's 3 areas we can look at there. One is the structure of the pre-K, where they located, how is it being utilized. The other one was the elementary schools, really from the standpoint of maybe some grade shifting that might be possible, because we know we can't really touch those. And the final thing I'd call it is let's call it a big building program. We don't want to let go of the opportunity to do something with CTE. We want to keep our focus on that. And also, we all know there's a number of proposals out there about doing something about combining the 3 middle schools, high school, doing something with 2 or 3 buildings, boil them down to 2. So we'll let you know after we vote next month what we prioritize on. Thank you.
Thank you.
We could talk about the healthcare thing later? What we've learned the last day or so?
Yeah, it's not on the agenda for tonight.
But
So.
I could talk about it because you talked about it in there. We did talk about it in budget property. I could use this opportunity to talk about it.
Okay,
Okay, so there are 2 healthcare, what we call them, 2 companies that provide umbrella coverage, or what's the word we use for that? Pooled risk, there you go. Healthcare is the pooled risk organization we use. The state is considering and correct me if I'm wrong here, Curtis, a mandate that there be a prescribed amount of reserves, financial reserves for these pooled risk companies. And right now, healthcare is short. It looks like everybody in the state, all the different pooled risk agencies said they can meet the new guidelines. Healthcare is making noises that we might not be able to meet it. It might shut down, or they might have to raise premiums substantially over the next couple of years. So one of the things we're going to take a look at as this thing plays out is alternatives to our current healthcare usage, and that will involve not the budget and property, it could have to involve the negotiations committee, because it's involved with the union. One of the other deep dive items I didn't mention before is stipends. As you know, when we signed the latest CBA, we had an agreement that we would take a look at. We allotted a certain amount of money for stipends, increase in funding for stipends this next couple of years. Part and parcel to that was an agreement to take a look at the details of how that money would be allocated to different positions. And Curtis and Tom are going to take the lead with Greg Leonard and the staff, HR and business manager, in doing that. So we'll be starting that soon. I should have mentioned that before. Sorry. Thank you. Anything else you want to add to the healthcare stuff, Ann or Tom?
Nope.
Thank you.
all right,
Stay tuned.
thank you. Yeah, we'll wait and see. Consent agenda. Dr. Forrest?
Well, we added, let me get something meeting minutes first. The piece that we added to this was, nominations and resignations. Sorry. I forgot. We added, resignations and nominations. So, Ben Mentor made the very hard decision to resign from being director of special education. And he has applied, and we're bringing forth, the position of high school psychologist, which we are very excited about. One, to keep Ben Mentor in district. The high school has not had a full-time school psychologist in a long time. It's filled with contracted services. So this is a really good thing for the high school. Just having a full-time dedicated person who's part of the community there. And for budget and property, it'll be less expensive because we're not contracting services. So it is a win-win. So I'm asking that you accept Mr. Mentor's resignation and approve his nomination to be school psychologist starting in the 25-26 school year.
Yes.
What about the position he currently has?
So after you accept his resignation, we will be posting it.
Yes, John.
Is the school psychologist for CVHS currently a budgeted, or is this an additional add to the budget that wasn't previously budgeted?
It was absolutely budgeted. We just haven't been able to fill it, so we've had to fill it with contracted services, but it is not an addition.
All right, could I have a motion, please, to accept that resignation?
So moved.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We did, that's a conjunction. We don't have to approve it.
So you're approving the entire consent agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The enrollment update?
So April 1st enrollment has been shared with you in your packet. Miss Judy Tremblay, her married name, puts this together for us. I've also asked her to update enrollment by town specifically, knowing that that request is coming and we're going to have it ready for you, Jim, or whoever asked for it.
Okay. Any questions on the consent agenda? Janine?
I'm just wondering about enrollment. Is it steady? There's no changes from last month? -4? Or is that overall? Just overall? I mean, it was -4 last month, wasn't it? All right, never mind. I ask that every time. I know, but it's okay.
All right. Any other questions about the consent agenda? All right, moving on. Superintendent's report.
Monthly calendar. So one of the changes on the calendar is we are members of the New Hampshire School Board Association. And one of the things we're thinking about is supporting our new board members and our non-new, sorry, word is escaping me, board members. So we want you to be aware that you have access to this. There's some great resources there. So we're just including the upcoming workshops that would be live. So This week, we had budget and property tonight, school board. Anything else for this week? All right. Next week on Tuesday, we have the communications committee meeting at 6. And then there is a New Hampshire School Board Association new school board member orientation from 5 to 7 that you can sign up for. And then that same workshop is being repeated on Thursday, the 10th at the same time of 5 to 7. Anything else for that week that needs to be scheduled?
Can I just say that those workshops are very helpful? I take them on a regular basis. They're really very helpful. Then they have a lot of different areas.
Okay, the week of the 14th, we have a school board meeting on the 15th at 7. And there's a New Hampshire School Board Association effective school board meetings for the school board chairs and other members. And that's from 12 to 1:30.
Mike, we need to add a public, if we can do it in time, with a public hearing prior to the board meeting. One of the things we talked about at the budget properties, we need to have a public hearing on to make the Bennington School ADA compliant. So we'll bring that forward on the 14th if we can do that. Is there time to get the notice out and everything? Good.
And what time? Do it at 7 and just do it for, okay. Perfect. Anything else for that week? The week of the 21st, we have communications on the 22nd at 4 p.m. Is that right? Okay. With policy committee at 6. On Wednesday, there is a right to know part 2. Part 1 is actually available by recording. And that's being offered from 12 to 2. And then Selectmen's Advisory at 7 p.m. on the 24th. Anything else for that week? Great. And that last week is spring recess. And there is a New Hampshire School Board Association's workshop on an overview of special education law from 12 to 1:30. Anything else for that week? No. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So school board orientation. So in the past, we've had Dean Eggert come in, and we have not ruled that out, but we want to make sure we're trying to provide some support embedded in our meetings. So tonight we just wanted to cover a couple things. One being we have a policy that we follow Robert's rules. And if you're brand new to being on a school board, we found a cheat sheet. I was just thinking, if I was brand new to the board, I wouldn't know that I could say point of order or point of information, or so we just wanted to give you something that you could reference if you weren't sure how. So, and if people have questions about, there's a whole book on Robert's Rules, so there's a lot to it, but we just want, this is a starting place. The other thing we wanted to talk about was board employee communication. So our policy BHC breaks down communication. So if staff wants to communicate with you, they should be going through me first, and vice versa. So if you had communications to staff, it should go through me. And we're not trying to, the purpose is not to keep you from communicating, but just making sure that it's appropriate, that I don't know if you want to.
Better make sure that everyone knows what's going on. So, and that appropriate communications are being used.
Yeah. If you were to outreach to a principal, they know that you're supposed to go through me. So you're immediately putting them in a difficult spot of like, ooh, do I respond? Then they feel like they're tattling. So this is our policy. Policies are like our laws, so we have to follow them. If you don't like something about this, then it should be referred to policy committee to review. So, and then visits to schools, you are welcome to visit schools. We just ask that you schedule a time. I know when Janine got on the board, she came and she toured the schools. She had lunch with students. We would love to anybody that's interested in doing that. We'd love to set that up for you. Curtis, I think when you got on the board, you traveled the district with Mr. Grassi, correct?
I did. I saw every school over 2 days with Tim. It was really insightful. I learned a lot and would recommend everybody do it, including us all who've been here. I think we should do it again too.
And if there was some interest, probably coordinating it. So it takes almost a day to get around all the buildings just to visit them quickly. So, but we'd love to support you in getting into schools, especially budget and property. If they're looking at facilities, it would probably be really good for you to get into the buildings and get the behind the scenes tour.
Makes it much more readily available and understanding what we're talking about if you've been in the school and see the things in the building as they exist, then as we're talking about them, you already have an idea of what's there. So, Jim?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on the fact we had the opportunity to visit all the gymnasiums of the school in February. But I wanted to make a comment too about the need to go through there are exceptions to that rule. If Mike, or if you're assigned a specific task that you've got specific ability to contact a staff member direct on a routine basis, you can do that. For instance, 2 of us are assigned to review the manifests in detail before they're presented here. You don't, that's just a standing rule that those certain people have more leeway, I guess, or more, you know what I mean? You'll know if you have it.
Yeah, we just asked that we have several assignments that we're asking people to do. And if in order to carry out that assignment, you have to go in and interact with people, then you need to do that. But it's in that manner you're acting as a member of the board, not just going in there on your own for whatever you wish to do. Again, we're not saying you shouldn't go in and see the schools, but going in to try to find out something, on your own. Again, you should go through Dr. Forrest first. So.
Okay. Board requests. So I was going through the minutes, and we have a board requests email. I'm not sure if everybody knows that, if our new members know it. It's boardrequests@conval.edu. So if you have a request, you can send an email. I get them and then assign them to the appropriate person to address. A number of things came up in our last meeting, so they weren't submitted through the board requests, but I'm going to be responding to them through board requests. So among those things, and I just want to review them to make sure that I don't miss any. Carl, you had asked about the warrant article around board stipends. So Neil, our business administrator for next year, was actually watching that meeting, and if I had checked my phone, had texted me there's an RSA, so I'm going to get that. I'm going to send that out through board request, the RSA that outlines why that needs to be set up that way. You also asked for Carl also asked for the 2026 estimates that were done in November. They're available on the DOE website, so we'll send that out. And Rob has said in the past on April 1st, we have new estimates. Are they out? And if those are out, we'll send those too. So
It's
you
the
have-
final version of the adequacy formula, and it came out today, April 1st.
Okay, so we'll send both of those out. Jim asked to see the manifests ahead of time. We were looking at policy, and our policy says that reviewing the manifest is set up as a special assignment duty, which I think we're going to talk about when we get down to communications. So right now, the way the policy is written is people on the board are designated to review the manifests prior to the board meeting, and then one of them needs to make the motion. And Jim, being the chair of budget and property, is going to be one of them. Mike Hoyt has been the chair, has always reviewed them, but when we get to that later, if we want to add additional people to be designated reviewers of the manifests, we can do that. So the way I'm reading the policy is that's who we give the manifest to. I could be reading it incorrectly, but I'd want policy to take a look at it if we're going to change that.
Jim?
I might add that Mr. Kingston talked himself into the job of reviewing the manifest on a weekly basis.
Great. Well, the nice thing is we know, like, if they're looking at it, we know they're looking at it thoroughly.
John?
I think the point was more, you're asking for us to vote on something as a board that we haven't physically looked at ourselves. And so I think the request was more, is it something that is not for public consumption that we can't review prior to the vote? I think that was more the intent, less the fact that Mr. Kingston wanted to personally see it himself.
Yes, absolutely. And I initially got it from Rob, and I was going to put it in the board folder. And then we were reviewing the policy, and Dave Jack was here. Also, he comes in and supports the business office. And so we were reviewing the policy, and it's just, again, we could have policy committee look at it. I don't have a problem, but it looks like the policy says we provide it to the people that have been designated to review the manifest prior to the board meeting. So I'm not trying to hide it. So either.
Jim?
I might offer, if anybody's really interested in seeing all of them, we could probably add another person for information. You wouldn't have to approve it, but if you want to see them all, you can see them all.
Yeah, I don't think the policy would prevent the manifest being sent out to everyone. I think it just says that, you know, the designated persons need to be the reviewer, you know, that are actually responsible for reviewing it and for making the initial motion to approve it.
We did talk about that this afternoon. There was disagreement, so.
Okay.
So maybe we have policy look at it. I have.
Yeah.
And then the last board request that I pulled out for the meeting minutes was Jim, when we were doing transfers last time, asked about special education transportation because we were transferring in $507,000. And so he was asking about the budgeting process, how that could be so off. The SAU administration did work on that. We've compiled a lot of information. That if I had had a time to like clean it up, I would have been giving it to you tonight, but I'm going to send that out in board requests also. Like everything, it's not as an easy answer, but we've compiled, I think, a lot of helpful information that may just raise more questions for you, but I'm going to send that information out through board requests tomorrow. If you have any questions about that, the sooner you could get them to me so that if we want to have a discussion about it at our next board meeting, we'll have the answers that we can.
Thank you. Two things about emails, just to remind people. Number one, if you look at when you're sending out an email, at the bottom of the email area, it outlines the right to know law. So you have to be careful what you're emailing, because at any point in time, someone can make a right to know request, and whatever has been emailed out then needs to be given to them. So you need to make sure that that's appropriate. Number two is that we can't do business on emails. A lot of times the committee chair people will send out either information on the committees, or they'll ask for information. And it's fine to just send something, but you have to be careful as far as we shouldn't be doing a reply all on the emails. It should just be sending information to whoever it is had a question for you. Okay. Any questions on that? Hopefully that clarifies things. Jim?
So one of the things that we don't do, but I have seen held up as best practice through New Hampshire Municipal Association, is that you don't copy everyone on an email. You blind copy people on an email. That way, if someone does inadvertently hit reply all, it doesn't go back to everyone, and you don't establish the violation of the right to know. So I would suggest that all your chairs don't copy, but blind copy the larger committee or larger group that you're discussing a matter with.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, old business, Janine?
So old businesses, that's our EBCH policy is, we're asking for adoption tonight. The language in question, Dr. Forrest found that, the language was from the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, for Flammable and Combustible Liquids Code. And it provides for safeguards to reduce the hazards associated with the storage, handling, and use of flammable and combustible liquids. So all of the changes, which was that single word, and actually is highlighted in yellow, but we would entertain a motion to adopt this policy.
I have a motion.
Move to adopt policy EBCH, Chemical Safety and Chemical Hygiene Plan.
Second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, thank you. In your packets, you have the draft of the 2025-26 school year calendar. We passed that out for people to look over, and it will be on the agenda for the April 15th meeting in order to vote on it at that point in time.
I do have some things to say. What sections? Thank you. I just wanted to give you some context when we go to do this. The state always puts out their recommendations for holidays as well as the weeks to take winter and spring break. We also need to meet with the other districts in our CTE region So we end up having a meeting with the superintendent from Conant, the superintendent from Messinic, and then by our collective bargaining unit, we have a number of Conval representatives, teacher representatives, the AD, a number of people. Some of the constraints we have, we could not differ more than 10 days from Messinic and Conant, since we have students that travel for programming back and forth. Conant's, the school year we plan has 180 days. Messinic school year for students is 175 days. So we're already 5 days different because of that. So that leaves, we can't be more than 5 days different. And we don't want to, we want to keep it as the same as possible for our students, because every time we differ, somebody's missing a class, right? So I just wanted you to be, in the past, we've sent out surveys, and I didn't this year because I remember one of the survey questions was around, do we do like 1 week in March? What we talked about with the superintendents is, should we all be doing a survey, since we need to have some coordination? So next year we may do that and do a survey to get information from all of the communities that will inform the planning. So before you, you have the most recent or the draft and the things that you need to make a decision about. I thought the 4th was not. I thought we took that off. Right? That shouldn't.
The black and white copy that we have, is it possible to discern that's not what you're saying?
It's just point of order. So the agenda has us talking about the last day of school first. So before we get into next year, are we going to talk about this year's last day of school?
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
That's okay.
So we need to identify the last day of school for students. We're not going to do that tonight. Our original calendar had us ending on a Friday. We've had 2 snow days. So I think the decision that we'll want from the board is, in the past, we've excused those days for students, and we've used the days for professional development with staff. But that is a decision that the board can make. So that's kind of the piece that the board will need to think about. Do you want to do the Friday as the last day, or would you like the students to make up the 2 snow days?
Just for new board members. So a lot of questions we get is, well, I thought it was 180 days, but the state requirements are that you can either go by days or you can go by hours obtained. We try to go by the 180 days, but again, as long as you reach a minimum amount of hours, then you're meeting the state requirements. So, okay. Now we'll get on to what's actually on the agenda. Thank you, John. So, last day of school for students. We're going to discuss that a little more. Or you all set?
Do people have any questions about that? I feel like that's what the board needs to mull over.
Yes, Carl.
Could you say something about why it is that you're apparently recommending the students don't adjust for the school 2 days and that the faculty does?
I'm giving you your choices. So I'm not making a recommendation right now, but past years, if makeup days kind of fall into the next week, the board has been waiving those days for students, and then we have the staff by contract need to work. So we've used those as for PD days.
We find if one day goes into the next week, that our attendance usually is so low that really not a whole lot gets accomplished. And so also, you know, as far as there's testing at the high school, they have a testing schedule the week before. So that affects when the students are there full-time, when they're there part-time, when they're not there at all. So other question, John?
I'm just gonna ask, is there a reason why we need to delay 2 weeks to decide on something that we have 2 days that typically the board has waived those 2 days? Is there a reason why we need to delay so parents and teachers can start planning for their last day of school? Me being one of them?
In the past, our procedure's been to let people know that a topic is being considered for a vote, and then give them the time between when it's brought up and when it's voted on, for them to do any thinking about it or research about it or what have you before we actually take a vote on it. So that's essentially what we were doing. Yep.
The reason I was asking is you're gonna ask us to vote for the 25-26 school year calendar, but now, so I just figured if we're talking about the school calendar, if we could, so, thank you.
I'm not going to ask you to vote on the calendar either. We're
was just
giving,
reading off
sorry, I know it's listed
Yep.
that a vote is required. A vote is required for that, but my hope tonight was just to point out the pieces that you have to consider and then have time. You can move to vote. I do want to say I do feel like it's always emphasized that attendance is low, and that is true for some families. I don't know if it's true for all families. I have heard from some parents who have to, and I'm thinking younger children who have to find childcare, that that they would prefer to have their children get the 180 days. So I just
we will try to get you a copy with the color coding on it rather than just black and white, so you can tell what the. Okay.
we have some there are some corrections that need to be made to this though, so we'll update it. I
Okay.
don't know if this was our most recent version.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. New business. First read policies.
Okay, so we've got a group of 4 policies up for first read. So that means that you have the next 2 weeks to read these policies. And if you have questions or concerns about any of them, you can contact Dr. Forrest or myself. So the first policy is JLCJA, Emergency Plan for Sports-Related Injuries and Additional Protocols. And this is the policy that outlines what needs to be in that emergency protocol. It's not the emergency protocol itself, but it's the policy that outlines what needs to be in there. The only update to that was now it covers grades 6 through 12. And we have information on the AEDs, how they are available at all events. The next policy is JLF, Reporting Child Abuse. And this was like a revised policy after NHSBA in consultation with DCYF and the Granite State Children's Alliance got together to improve the reporting protocols or requirements and record recording requirements. There's a new mandate for training that was included. and the procedures were separated out from the policy. So what you're going to read is just the policy, not the procedure. The procedure is developed and approved by the administration, not the board. The third policy is JICK, Pupil Safety and Violence Prevention. And there was only a minor change made to this, a proposed revision. And by the way, all the changes made for these policies are highlighted in yellow. So you'll be able to see them. There was a discussion around a few words that needed to be included, what needs to be identifying whether a situation, whether an incident was bullying or not, and those words are highlighted. Also, a page will be added. The committee recommended that a page will be added to the website, which will clarify the reporting procedures for incidents of bullying and make it more easily accessible to people so they will be able to report those incidents for examination by the administration. And they have a protocol for looking at those incidents. And the fourth one is policy IGE, parental objections to specific course material. This was updated by Dr. Forrest and the administration, and there's quite a bit of yellow highlighting to reflect the constant or the current situation. It is, I think it was very well done. It's much clearer for staff as to what the protocol is for notifying parents, for letting them know what the curriculum is, and then how a parent would come in and review the curriculum, and how the staff, a teacher and a parent would go about identifying what an alternative replacement would be for that curriculum that they find objectionable. So those are the four. Please, like I said, if you have any questions, please let Dr. Forrest or myself know, or another member of the committee. Yes.
So this is more consistency across all the policies. The policy we just voted in tonight specifically states the superintendent and or designee on section D of biennial review and update. I noticed in all of these policies, there is specifically JLCJA. The previous version had his, her instead of, and was changed to their. But in all the other policies, there is still mention of his, her, and not there. Is there a consistency of just removing pronouns altogether and simply just adopt superintendent and or designee so that we don't have to go through this multiple times in multiple policies? So it's just consistent across all policies.
We try to make it consistent, and when we think about it and notice it, we do change it to there. It's just easier that way. So.
Okay, I'm just saying we don't even need to say there. We can just say superintendent and or designee.
Right.
And that completely removes it from the equation, and it's consistent language across all policies. So.
Okay, good suggestion. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you, John.
Okay.
So would
and-
you,
Yep, Jim.
would you suggest, could we, with the board's approval, go through and scrub these policies in that fashion and just change that piece of the language and still consider this a first read? Would the board approve that?
That's a good question. That's a big job. Are you volunteering?
Sure.
It's huge. It really is a huge job. We have
No, not every policy, just the four that are sitting here in front of us tonight.
Oh, yes. We absolutely can do that. We absolutely can do that.
I thought you meant every policy too. I was going to say,
Yeah.
do you know how long that will take?
We'll take a look at that in the next policy committee meeting and see like what's appropriate, like where we can change that.
Yep.
So just for the purpose of the proper questions or recommendations, any questions or recommendations of changes were to email Dr. Forrest
Or Janine?
or Janine on the first read. That's the proper
Right.
procedure.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Right, if there are no other questions or comments, down to committee assignments and review jurisdiction. So every committee has been meeting. Hopefully, committee assignments for the most part have been solidified. We do have need for a person to be on the food service committee. Both the food service and the wellness committee are supposed to be meeting quarterly. So we need one person to be the board representative on the food service committee. So if, all right, Dan? Thank you. Hmm? Yeah.
Yes. Carrie Coates will be sending out information, and it's made up of all, like every building's supposed to have a wellness coordinator, so the wellness coordinators from each building will be on that committee.
Food service he's talking about.
Well, it's combined, food service and wellness.
Hmm.
Food service and wellness are combined.
Oh,
Are
okay.
you?
Okay. Any other questions about committee assignments? Okay.
Are you going to designate anybody else for?
District, discuss district tuition rate.
Oh, like rep to New Hampshire School Board Association?
Oh, I'm sorry. We also need a representative to the New Hampshire School Boards Association, and specifically to go to the delegate assembly. So if there's someone that would like to do that, we need to fill that position. Again, you can contact me if you're interested in doing that. Right. Out of district tuition rate.
So in your packet, I've shared with you, or Brenda found, what has been done in the past around out-of-district tuition. The reasoning behind this when it first started was we were looking at classrooms that had open seats. And so if we added a student, an out-of-district student, to that class, there really wasn't any additional cost because we didn't have to get a new teacher. There was room in that class, and so it was always dependent upon that piece. And the idea at the time was to make it appealable to people who are out of district, so that it could potentially become a revenue source. And so I don't know if anybody else on the board who was there for that conversation wants to add any of that to that. But I wanted to share it with you tonight. I think we need to talk about it and decide on it. But I think the big thing would be is does the board have any questions that they would like answered before we make a decision about setting out of district tuition?
Jim?
Yeah, so while this may be a revenue source for an empty seat of a non-special needs student, we don't have a special needs tuition cost listed here, and that could certainly exceed the dollar figure that's being asked of us, right?
That typically gets billed to the district of residence.
All those
Does that
costs.
answer?
All those costs.
The district of residence is financially responsible for special ed costs of a student. So they would have to pay the special ed costs, but tuition is different.
Okay.
John?
So in your experience and the history of doing this, has the dollar figure of 40% shown an actual revenue increase to the school district, or is it a minimal revenue? Because I know there's a certain school district south of here who didn't pass their sports budget and might or might not have some students that would like to play sports next year and might be interested in a tuition agreement at a school district that does have sports.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're bringing this forward, that we do expect to have inquiries about this.
Well, I guess, okay, let me redirect or be more specific. At 40%, the likelihood of, at $10,530 a year, is a family going to pay that at 40%, or is it just a nice number to have? Whereas if there's no additional cost to bring the student in, if we reduce that from 40% to, let's say, 25%, does that bring in more students?
Curtis?
Do we have a sense of our capacity for tuition of this, for these open seats at the moment? Compared to what what we've been able to offer in the past year and years past?
Well, kindergarten's always unknown, but that, yes, we could get that information of where we have capacity. That's what I want to surface tonight, like what would help you make a decision about this and feel good about that decision, or what would you want to know? So we can talk about capacity.
We can also try to get figures as far as students that we currently have who are paying the reduced tuition amount. And that would help you maybe see to what extent we're talking about that. Jim?
I was going to ask if we have any information about the effectiveness. Is this number too high, too low? And John came out of one direction. So clearly the number of people who have attended gives us one answer, but that doesn't give us the full answer in terms of how many more would we have had if we'd lowered it. I don't know how you get that, but I'd like to consider that. The other thing too, I think, is that isn't our policy that we only accept a student if there is open space? Right.
Go ahead.
Kat and I may be thinking,
Oh.
or Brent, Kat go first.
Go ahead.
Well, Brenda just reminded us, contractually, we've set rates with the collective bargaining unit. So, and those costs are included at the bottom. So if you lowered it, you're giving them a lower rate than we're giving our collective bargaining unit members, or unless we were going to give them that rate too. So
Okay.
that's something to consider. Thank you, Brenda.
Kat, did you have a question?
No, that's what I was going to say.
Okay. Jim?
So, so I get space available in elementary school or kindergarten, space available in high school, and even to some extent in middle school is a little bit trickier.
Mhm.
How do we negotiate? There are lots of elective classes, from what I understand, that we don't have enough seats in right now. When we were going through this whole CTE expansion thing, there are more people wanting classes than there are seats available. Do we say, sure, you can come, but our kids get first dibs on all these electives?
Yeah, that would be a conversation with the high school. I know we had requests this year that we said no, high school requests specifically because if you'll remember, we were very short math teachers and the classes were already big, and we felt like to allow somebody to come when with that piece being where it was, so we said no. So we would have to look at it.
Other questions? Okay, again, we'll vote on that, the next meeting.
So just for clarity, I'm going to be looking into capacity. Was there?
And if we had some idea of, are we looking at a very small amount of students that 8? I'm being told that we have 8 students who are on the reduced tuition currently, so. And that includes staff? You don't know how that separates out, huh? Five and 3? Okay, yeah. All right,
And we did say no to people that requested, which.
okay. All right, the staffing justification for special ed teacher, we are not going to be discussing tonight.
I'm sorry, this keeps ending up on our agenda and then I say we're not going to talk about it. We continue to look in-house. We're really struggling with the idea of hiring a special educator at this point in the year, when we know things are going to shift almost immediately going into next year. And so we thought we had exhausted all our in-house possibilities, but then another has surfaced. So we're just trying to, we're kind of patching things together right now to provide the services. So that is being met, but we don't want to bring forward, because that is an additional teacher. So our hope is still to make it, address it in-house, and then see where we are going into next year.
Okay, thank you. All right, request to accept gifts and donations. Can I have a motion? Bless you.
Sure. I'll move. Go ahead.
Janine, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Greg, were you gonna go? Go ahead. No? I move that we accept the gift from the Ladies Aid Society to help fund students on the American Heritage Tour with gratitude.
Second? Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The second gift?
Sure.
Your turn.
I move that we accept the gift of $900 from Dick and Wendy Dunning to help offset costs for the AHT trip at South Meadow.
Second.
With gratitude.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, our last, did you have a question, Jim?
There's a
Greg,
third gift that wasn't listed on the proposal.
pardon me?
There's a third gift in the packet that's not listed on the agenda. So I propose that we accept the gift from LeMay's Black Belt Academy of Jaffrey, valued at $566 for student supplies and materials at PES.
Second.
With gratitude.
Okay, did you get that, Brenda? Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, point of clarification, did you say from Jaffrey or it's from Peterborough? It's Jaffrey Road in Peterborough.
Okay.
Getting old.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I guess that covers my sheet now. All right, our second public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment? All right, thank you. We do have need for non-public session. Can we have a motion to go into non-public session? Yeah. Yep, go ahead.
I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A, colon, 3, comma, Roman numeral 2 for personnel.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
Oh, we have to go name by name, don't we?
Yep.
Oh.
All right. Okay. Dan was,
Cat folking, yes.
Carl Mazzino, yay.
Sarah Edmonds, yes.
Dan Harper, yes.
Janine Lesser, yes.
Curtis Hamilton, yes.
Mike Hoyt, yes.
Jim Frederickson, yes.
Tom Burgess, yes.
John Wood, yes.
Jim Kingston, yes. Cat already, yes.